We are also following the latest on possible criminal contempt charges against former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. The full House is expected to vote today on whether to recommend contempt of Congress charges against him for failing to comply with its subpoena. Last night, the January 6th committee unanimously voted to move forward. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, one of the two Republicans on the panel, had this to say.
First, he produced over 9,000 pages of documents from his time in the White House. Then, after his former boss made it clear his disappointment and displeasure, he did a 180, and he refused to answer even a single question from his former colleagues or even to show up at all. This constitutes legal contempt, but also personal contempt.
So, Nikole Killion joins me now from Capitol Hill with the latest on this story. Nikole, what do we know about Meadows' communication with lawmakers, press, and even members of Donald Trump's own family on January 6th?
Yeah, well, a lot of this stems from the committee's contempt report, and then some members did go into more detail about some of these text messages during last night's meeting. But, more or less, the general theme and consensus among a lot of these folks who were texting Mark Meadows is they wanted the former president to stop the violence that was occurring here at the Capitol. And so, they outlined a number of text messages from cable news personalities, Fox News hosts in particular, folks like Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, who were really pressing the president to try to stop this, to try to make a statement. Laura Ingraham at one point saying that the former president was destroying his own legacy. And then as far as the former president's son, Donald Trump Jr., he texted a pretty sharply worded text to Mark Meadows containing an expletive saying more or less that, the former president has to make this blank stop as soon as possible. I'm paraphrasing that tweet, and Mark Meadows responded that he's pushing hard. So it really kind of goes to show the extent to which not only Mark Meadows, but the former president, the pressure they were under to try to condemn the attack as it was happening in real time.
So even though Meadows didn't show up for his deposition last week, he did turn over thousands of pages of documents to the committee. What do we know about those documents?
Yeah, so Mark Meadows' argument is that he has been trying to cooperate with the committee by at least turning over things that are non-privileged. His whole argument is that he does believe some things are privileged since he was the former president's chief of staff. But again, these are 9,000 pages of documents, including emails, text messages, as we mentioned. And, these aren't just things that were coming from members of the media and his own family, but also these text messages and communications from lawmakers about, the outcome of the election, and to the extent that Mark Meadows was kind of the go-between between some of these members of Congress and the former president with respect to rejecting electors potentially, and dealing with some of these state and local officials to try to contest the election results. So some of the communication surrounds that, and look, Mark Meadows in his view feels that he has been cooperating, but the committee soundly rejects that because they say that Meadows released a book, a tell-all book, a memoir earlier this month. So if he could do that, he could have showed up for that deposition.
So how does Meadows' case then differ from Steve Bannon? I guess one of the obvious ways is at least Meadows cooperated to a certain degree.
Right. So the big difference here is this argument of executive privilege. And so if anyone potentially could be protected by that, it could potentially be Mark Meadows again, since he was the former president's chief of staff. And so some of those communications that he had with the former president could fall under that purview. In the case of Steve Bannon, he kind of claimed this a blanket immunity and executive privilege, even though he hadn't worked in the White House for several years. So that is the primary difference. Obviously, we saw the Justice Department come back with an indictment against Steve Bannon, who has been charged on 2 counts of criminal contempt. So his case will go to trial next summer. But in terms of Mark Meadows, the process is similar in that now that this has been voted out of the January 6th Select Committee, it will go to a full House vote today. And if this contempt referral passes, then it would again be referred to the Justice Department, which will have to decide whether or not not to hold or press charges against Mark Meadows, but it's likely certainly the department will be very deliberate here since there is a pretty distinct difference in their cases.
And does it seem like this will pass in the House? Are all Democrats on board with this?
The contempt vote, more or less. I mean, bottom line, this will be a party line vote. That is how the last vote against Steve Bannon worked out. Obviously, the committee has now referred 3 people for contempt of Congress, which includes Steve Bannon, who again has been indicted, Mark Meadows, and then, of course, you have Jeffrey Clark. Now, Jeffrey Clark, his referral has not come before the full House as of yet because he made this 11th hour plea that he was going to plead the 5th, and he is due to appear before the committee later this week. So that is still a case that's in progress. But as far as Mark Meadows is concerned, the committee has made clear that their patience has simply run out. And so I do expect it'll likely pass the full House, again, on a party line vote.
So listen, Nikole, before we let you go, President Biden spoke to Senator Joe Manchin yesterday about the Build Back Better plan. Joe Manchin has been one of the main holdouts on this package. Do we know where things currently stand on this?
Well, it's interesting because both Joe Manchin and the White House put out these similarly worded statements saying that, they had good and productive, constructive conversations. Yesterday, they spoke by phone and agreed to talk in the coming days. So, the bottom line is that they are still talking, that Joe Manchin is still at the negotiating table, which is what lawmakers say has been the case all along. Keep in mind, though, while a lot of the attention is on Joe Manchin and his willingness to sign on to this package, there are still a lot of issues that still have to be resolved with the Senate parliamentarians. So that's another potential hiccup or hang-up as the Senate tries to move forward with this package. Leader Schumer reiterated yet again yesterday that he wants to get this done by Christmas. But bottom line, they're going to have to wrap all of that up by the end of this week in order for that to happen. Anne Marie?
Yeah, seems pretty aspirational. Nikole, thank you very much.
You bet.